for being here today.
Thank you so much, Monica, for that kind introduction. And yes, pointing out that we still have not met in person, which seems crazy considering that we've worked together now for 5 years or so. So can everyone see my screen okay and hear me okay? All good? Okay, thank you. Thank you also to World Hope Forum for bringing all of us together. I'm really honored to be part of this entire panel. I will have to say, I'm not sure how long I'm going to last. It's 10 o'clock now here, which is way past my old person bedtime. So, but I look forward to seeing the recording afterwards. So as Monica mentioned, I will be talking a little bit about a model that we've piloted that we developed together with Monica and the Cultural IP Rights Initiative team and the Oma ethnic group of Laos that seeks to try to empower communities to take more control and management over their traditional cultural expressions and give them some power in this whole unequal sort of dynamic. So first, just to start, to give you a little bit of background on context. So I'm based in Luang Prabang, a World Heritage Site in the north of Laos, a small Southeast Asian country, surrounded by, giants of Thailand and Vietnam and China. So Laos has less than 8 million people, but in that small population, we have 50 officially recognized ethnic groups. And actually, if you count all of the subgroups and languages, something closer to 160 different groups. So it's in this extremely diverse context that we founded the Traditional Arts and Ethnology Center. And by we, I mean the two of us pictured there, myself, as well as my co-director and co-founder, Kun. So we founded TAEC as a cultural heritage social enterprise. So we're, as I hope, like Francis Gurry was mentioning, one of these, non-state actors, basically, that's gotten more involved in this area of work. And so being a social enterprise basically means that we're a mission-driven business. So our goal is really to promote more appreciation and celebration of the cultural diversity of Laos and to really invest in the sustainable development of these communities. So we do a number of different activities. We have a small museum with permanent and temporary exhibits about, the cultures and traditions of the country. We do research in communities and also with our collection. We have a school outreach team. And we also have a large advocacy and livelihoods program. And the most significant part of that work is really our handicrafts program. So this is run by Kun, my co-director. And this is where we work with over 600 producers of handicrafts from around the country. These are primarily rural ethnic minority women who are some of the poorest populations of the country, and also have some of the lowest levels of formal education. However, they have very high levels of traditional skills and traditional knowledge. So we work together with them to try to adapt those traditional skills to more market-oriented products. All of them have incredible skills with creating particularly textiles, but traditional arts that are used for ceremonial use, for their traditional dress, for daily life, and particularly in the past, but also currently. But we help them adapt those more to market-oriented products, primarily for the tourism market, which they can then earn a supplementary income from, which provides a level of independence for them, financial independence. So 50% of them, so we sell those products in our shop. So we have a shop at our museum, we have a shop on the main street of town, we have an online shop, but 50% of the money from those sales goes back to our artisans directly, and 50% stays with us. So that allows us to continue our work as well. So getting to the Oma ethnic group. So the Oma we've been working with since 2010, originally first on just handicrafts and then on different kinds of research work and advocacy. So the Oma are a tiny ethnic group, less than 3,000 people worldwide, and they only live in the far mountainous north of Laos in Phongsalit province, traditionally 7 villages. And you can see there from the pictures, they're very much an agrarian people. They practice subsistence rice farming. They very much live off the land. So despite being a very small ethnic group living in a relatively remote place, they still have a lot of cultural pride and pride in their identity. And if you ask Oma people, you know, what makes you Oma? What makes you different than other groups? They will oftentimes talk about their traditional clothing and textiles. And as you can see here, it's really bold, their clothing. It's this blue, black, indigo cotton that's embroidered and appliqued with red and white and other colors with traditional motifs. And traditionally families would grow cotton alongside their rice crop. Though in recent years, we've spoken to a lot of communities and a lot of families who have said that's become more and more difficult due to climate change. Rainfall patterns, heat levels, all of that has shifted so dramatically. It's been harder and harder for them to get successful cotton harvests. And of course, we are right next to China here. So there's no dearth of factory produced thread and cloth as well. But some families do still persist in growing, processing, spinning their own cotton, all by hand, then setting up the loom so they can do hand loom weaving, doing the dyeing, the indigo dyeing and the weaving itself, and then doing the embellishing, using the applique work, the embroidery work, all by hand. And this is very much a social activity for women. So it's very much done by women, and they will sit together, you know, so in between all the other work that women have to do day to day, they will sit together, chat, gossip, share as they work on their textiles, which they're making for their family. And then they will also help one another out. So one woman might not be very good at cutting the applique figure of the frog's hand. So another woman will help her cut it out, and then she can sew it. Somebody else may run out of purple thread, so she'll get it from her aunt, you know. And so it's very much a process of sharing. It's a collective kind of production process. And, you know, while they're in the process of actual production of their cultural heritage, they're also involved in really strengthening social ties, you know, and community life by sharing this textile work. So, you know, it fulfills a number of different roles, this work and these traditional textiles. And of course, as often happens when you have a group of women, you also have a whole gang of kids milling about. And so children are really observing, learning how important these textiles, that this practice is to their identity, to their community, to their lives. And so from the time of birth, really, this process of transmission, cultural transmission, is occurring. Okay, so getting to the bad thing that brought Monica and us together. So in 2019, a friend of ours, an ex-colleague actually, happened to be traveling in Europe, looked through a fashion boutique window, and saw this dress on display and for sale. And it sent us down this whole whirlwind kind of journey of figuring out that actually this was digitally printed outfits. You know, there was no handiwork done. There was no acknowledgement of the Oma on any, you know, labeling. We approached the company, we were rebuffed, we started a social media campaign. So I won't go into all of the details of that. We do have some short videos on our website and on our YouTube channel. I'll put links at the end of my talk to those if you're interested in hearing more about that. But basically, this whole experience helped us learn much more about the fact that traditional cultural expressions and this kind of traditional design is not, as was mentioned in the previous talk and by Monica, is not protected by the current kind of legal framework, the kind of value framework currently that we have. So conventional intellectual property designations, things like copyrights and geographical indications, those don't protect traditional cultural expressions. And that's because, as was explained, this IP law was created in a very specific time to foster commercial innovation, to foster investment in inventions, to profit maximize, to grow capital, part of the capitalistic system. So obviously that's a very different value system than a lot of these traditional, more agrarian communities are based on. So many indigenous and traditional communities have argued that these kinds of cultural intellectual property rights do not serve their interests, and in some cases can disenfranchise them. For example, if that company, the fashion brand, had tried to had copyrighted that line of clothing and were successful, that would have meant that the Oma may have been prevented from using or selling their own textiles if it was successfully copyrighted. So you can see how local communities can be kept out of the process very, very quickly. So it's been argued that there needs to be this new generation of intellectual property rights, cultural intellectual property rights. So this was a term coined by Monica, as she mentioned in her introduction. And the argument really here is that we need a completely different understanding of intellectual property, a different system that is really tailored to customary law, to the lifestyles and the value systems of how this kind of knowledge, this kind of intellectual property is used and managed, or what we say, that the custodianship idea, that it's not ownership, but it's custodianship. So that's, sort of the direction that we're trying to head in now. And of course, it's a slow uphill kind of battle. So then getting to the tool, the model that we've developed. So we were lucky enough after the misappropriation to be able to secure funding for us to work together with Monica and the Cultural IP Rights Initiative team, as well as others, and the OMA, to pilot the trial of this textile design database. And the idea of this is that it is just one step, one tool, one way in which communities can take a more active role in defending and managing how their traditional cultural expressions are used and who accesses them and how they're used. So it has a number of different components, this model. I'll just tell you about how the process we went through with the OMA. So first in the village, we went through a lot of community consultations. So, in this case, it was very important due to their remote location and education levels and that sort of thing, that we really had a lot of long conversations in groups, in, village-wide meetings, in, individual conversations about their traditional motifs, their traditional textiles, their identity, their cultural values, and how they wanted those to be treated and whether they were willing to embark on this process of creating this database, you know. So we, of course, did talk a bit about the misappropriation, because it was an option for them to say, no, we're actually fine with this, you know, if somebody else uses it, you know, it was really kind of up to them. So it was a lot of debate too, back and forth, and discussion. And, you know, we always have to look at power dynamics within a community. And, you know, communities, any community is not a utopia, you know. So we also had conversations with village leadership. We had conversations with women artisans. We had conversations with youth. You know, a lot of the teenagers in the community, they study in another village because their community is so small. They walk 4 hours to another village to study from Monday to Friday and come home. So then on Saturday, we had to have our conversation with them, because we wanted to make sure that we really had a pluralistic, sort of a really an understanding of all the different voices in the community. But this was the long process to get to free, prior, informed consent from the community, which is really a key component of our work together. Then we went through the painstaking process of documentation. So this was doing all of the interviews, audio recordings, photography, videos, that we're looking at the materials, the techniques, the motifs, the taboos, and the customary laws around how the motifs were used, what the placement is on certain garments. That was one of the things that the community was really unhappy about with the misappropriation, was that one set of motifs that are customarily put together and are put on the headdress were put on the bottom of a dress used by this fashion company. And so for them, that was quite disrespectful. So that's the kind of thing that it was gathered through this documentation process. So through all of this very, very detailed information collection, we then compiled the OMA Traditional Textile Design Database. And so this database really serves three main purposes for the community. First, it's just a repository. So it's a documentation of everything I just mentioned: the materials, techniques, motifs, meanings, you know, value systems, the taboos, in order to create a record of this moment in time of this community's, you know, traditional textiles for future generations. And a lot of communities said how valuable this was and interesting it was for them. Second is that it provides defensive protection. So if in the case that another company did end up trying to use some OMA designs and try to copyright them, the OMA people, together with the Lao government, would be able to show this database and the information it has that demonstrates, well, these motifs have been in our community for, you know, 4 generations. They're used on our clothing this way. This is what they mean. This is what they mean, how we use them, in order to show this cannot be copyrighted. It's not an original design of somebody else. This is something that we are the custodians of. And third, this database is an opportunity for collaboration. So a lot of these communities, and particularly the OMA, are very much keen to work with designers and work with outside brands and companies. So this database can be a resource for such a collaboration. You know, it can be sort of a lookbook, something for the community as well as designers to look at together to see, oh, how do you use certain motifs? How could we use them? Could we change the colors? Could we change the size? How could we play with them? So in a way, this could be a source of inspiration and really a resource for them. So those are the three main kind of, you know, goals of how this database can be used. And I should say that also this database is a template, you know, and this approach is a model, like we mentioned. So this is a tool that can be licensed by communities anywhere or advocacy groups anywhere. So if somebody else in, you know, Bolivia or, Romania wanted to take this database template and use it for their own community, go through these same sort of steps, adapt it to their own use, however it needs to be adapted, they can do so. So, I mean, we are very much open to that. And that was really the hope when Monica and our whole team developed it, is that this needs to be something that can be scaled up, that can be of use to people anywhere, that need it. So just getting to the last few bits, we have continued to do some other activities together with the OMA and on this issue. So in our museum at the moment, we have a small exhibition called Claiming Inspiration about this issue and about the OMA. It's up for another year or so. So if any of you are planning to come to Luang Prabang, please do come and see it. In it, we also talk about the global relevance of this issue. Just the fact that there are communities from all over the world, from Mexico, from Romania, from Kenya, that have been misappropriated, and how commonplace it is and how problematic it is. So, really try to put it in a global context. And of course, all the OMA community members who have come to visit really enjoy seeing their own clothing in the exhibit and seeing how other communities have been part of this issue as well. Then we continue to work on our product development with them. So we've continued to create products which we sell. Some are just really simple little things that we create for the tourist market, which, kind of any artisans can produce. This might be young people who don't have very high skills yet. So things like bookmarks and keychains. But then we've also tried a little bit to create more complex pieces and more creative kind of pieces using their motifs together with them. And they've always been very excited and very interested and love modeling them and trying them out and saying, oh, how have these been used? And we've noticed that a lot of them have incorporated some of it into their own day-to-day wear too, of kind of playing with fashion a little bit on their own. And we've also partnered together with the OMA, all 7 of the communities, in helping them to sell some of their more vintage pieces. So a lot of these community members, they have older pieces which they no longer wear anymore, which they would like to sell because they're pieces that could fetch a significant amount of money if they are valued in the way that a real art piece should be valued. So we've worked together with them to try to come up with appropriate value of those pieces, some which, have been made by, family members that have whole stories behind them. So we help them by creating a website and trying to kind of mediate that sort of sale for them. And going forward, we've been lucky to get a bit more funding so we can continue expansion of this model. So that's why Monica will be coming here to Laos in January. We will be expanding this database and model to 2 other communities in Laos, and we hope further afield in Asia and perhaps globally, and really disseminating the lessons from this model with other people through this project. But the other thing that we're excited about, and that the OMA are quite excited about, is that we also have some resources to support collaboration, so a design collaboration. So, based on the 3 C's rule, which Monica had just explained, now consent, credit, compensation. So based on this rule, the OMA are going to invite interested parties. There'll be an open call in 2025, interested parties to partner with them, travel here to Laos, to work together with them, to create something. Maybe it's a capsule collection of accessories or homewares or, art pieces. But that this is an opportunity to demonstrate how the database can be the foundation of a equitable collaboration that's for the benefit of all parties. So I'll put this image in the chat so that if anybody's interested, you can hold on to this or pass it on to others and keep in touch for when the call comes in 2025. And I'll also leave this as a PDF in the chat as well. It's got links to the videos I mentioned, to the database and other resources we have. So if you're interested to learn more, I hope you'll explore those and get in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. And sorry.